lawyers, people who advocate and advance the law, if we are engaging in any activity, we look at the best practices that would conform to best standards and international practices. And so, in respect of AI in legal research, what considerations, what would be the threshold of adopting best practices that people who make use of these facilities, AI, research for their researchers, including law students, lawyers, all other enthusiasts, what would be the best practices that they ought to adopt?
Yeah, I think there's a very long list of best practices. Like I could cite quite a huge list for even an entire course. So I'll try and
Entire course.
yeah,
Try and make it brief.
I'll try and
About
summarize.
three core best practices that you think that we can do without.
Yeah, I think the first one will be that you need to think of AI to give you a plan rather than an answer. A lot of the time, people just try to go onto ChatGPT to ask about what is the answer to this particular topic or what is the answer or what is this particular work. I think the best practice within the legal industry and also to prevent quite a huge number of hallucinations, and I'll explain hallucinations after I list these best practices in a bit. But you need to think of using these generative AI platforms as a lawyer with trying to interrogate it for a plan rather than an answer. Because in the past, when you do not have some of these tools, you usually do not know where to start from. But because of the large set of information that these models have been trained on, if you ask the AI about a plan initially, it will let you know where to start from or what to do. And I think the second best practice I could also cite would be to try and ground your conversation with the AI in sources. So what this means is that a lot of the times we do not know where the AI is producing the information from, sorry. So for a lot of technical people on this call, you know that these AIs are built on models. So ChatGPT is built by OpenAI and is built on their model. Claude is built on Sonnet. If you try to ground it in a particular source, so for example, if you're a Ghanaian lawyer and you're about to start working, you should be able to prompt your AI to tell you that they should specify your responses in the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Other than that, you'll be getting some UK case law examples that you wouldn't need. Sometimes you want to do a very broad-based research, which is fine. You can leave it as that. But most of the time, you should bear in mind that if you do not give the baseline of the source, you might be getting quite a high number of hallucinations. Is to keep a research log. A research log is technical, but I think you should think of building an AI library as a law firm or as a lawyer. The reason why you should be building this library is that most of the times you come back to do repetitive work. So if you're a student, you might be coming back to come and ask the same questions that you asked to study. You can start building a library or a log where you keep the same questions or the same prompt in that particular folder so that you don't necessarily have to be always coming back to try and prompt it in the same manner. In a law firm, it will make more sense when all the junior lawyers or the people who do most of the repetitive work at the base have a research log where if somebody has worked on any land or any transaction, the person will put all the prompts that they use or any files or any documents that help them give any very contextual output, put it there so that people will not come back to work trying to figure out where to start from again. So it's more of building a modern library. Um, when ChatGPT, just to finish the point, when ChatGPT came a few years ago, I think now we've grown. Right now we're at the model 5.2. In the early days where we were in the 3.0, 3.5, 4.0, one of the biggest skills that a lot of people were preaching is that every lawyer should have a prompting skill. I disagree now because now the models work way better than before. For people who use it a lot, you now see that there's a chain of reason. You see the thought that is going behind it. So for this instance, if you don't even prompt properly, it works better now. So if you use it for any transaction as a lawyer and you think that, oh, I put in this sentence and it worked properly, why don't you save it in a particular environment just to save your colleagues some time? So these are the three best practices I can give. But back to the point about hallucinations, which we all know that AI can make mistakes. So in all of the output that it will give, you just have to make sure you verify it when it gives you the output.
Well, Michelle, that was a good one on the best practices that one ought to adopt in exploring AI-assisted legal researches. Now, the next very important question that I would want us to address is that, I mean, how do we conceptualize the division of labor in respect of AI systems and then human legal reasoning? I mean, a lot of people do argue that, I mean, and in fact, I mean, as a matter of fact, the human brain works more effectively about, I mean, 22 times than the AI would do. And so how do we conceptualize it? What should we expect? What is the extent to which we can divide our labor such that AI will take certain portions while we apply human reasoning to the other?
Yeah, so I think JB, in trying to do this, this is the most difficult part of it now. And this is where people have been making a lot of noise that AI is going to replace us, especially lawyers, but I totally
We
disagree.
are, we are, we are praying against it.
Yeah, yeah, there's absolutely no data AI will
Yeah.
replace any lawyer. But I think we've got to the point where if you know how to use it, it separates you from the masses. Now, I'll give you some examples of how you can see like the best way to use the AI and how the lawyer can actually apply it properly. So the way the AI models are built, they are built on trillions of documents and they have been trained properly to be able to spot patterns. So for litigants or lawyers who are in litigation, I think one of your stuff that you always do is that you always have large sets of documents that you always need to spend time to go through, whether you are building an evidence and all of that. Unfortunately, I know obviously in Ghana we haven't been able to digitize most of our documents, but what an AI can actually do properly is to spot a pattern, not to be political or to give an example, but something very relatable is the trial that is currently ongoing. Obviously, everybody on the call would know about it concerning the national security matter going on, where the
Yeah.
Dubois case. I think one of the best use cases of AI in that instance would be to try to even understand all the bank statements and the transactions so that we will not have people spending time to actually spot that, okay, when did this transaction move here or when did this amount move here? I don't think we are in the era where human beings need to be doing that work. So that's a clear example of AI taking a large chunk of time off a lawyer or a junior associate doing that work. And also another part will be comparing legal authorities. I think we've reached the era where these models know so much about laws in every jurisdiction. So if you are doing a research, you don't need to go. I remember when I was studying LLB, like you go into a library where it's telling you about some Indian laws and all of that. You don't need to be doing that in this era. I think it saves all of us some time. And one of the good things about AI is how it summarizes a long form of text so summarization is very good with AI, but you have to be extra careful because sometimes the output miss some very important parts of it. And that's where the verification comes in. I'll come to that in a bit. But in this era, I think you shouldn't be spending time, as much time that you'll be spending reading a 300-page judgment like you'll be doing 2 or 3 years ago. So in summarization, I think for the lawyers on the call, every lawyer knows what they want out of a case. So know that you would want this particular fact, you would know that you want this procedure, you know that this is what you are looking for, depending on what you are doing. So if you know these key bullets, you easily give that bullet as a as a prompt to the AI to just give it to you. Then you can go on and spend time doing what.
Michelle, sorry I'm coming in at this point, but I want you to direct that aspect to our law students, where in your first year legal writing class, we are being taught to how to brief cases and all that. Is it the case that we have outlived?
Your network was breaking, but if I got you correctly, you are saying in first year law schools, whether briefing of a case is a work that law students should still be doing. Is that
Yeah,
a question?
yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
I'll try and run away from that question. I'll not attempt to answer it. I'll just give a response to it. Just because I think that the whole structure or training of law students should change. That's my personal opinion. I think we've got to an era where we have to actually look at the whole curriculum of training law student, whether in the LLB or the professional law school. That's my personal opinion. But the risk here is that there is a way that I'm sure that is, or there's an output that is expected of you when you are briefing a case. It sometimes differ depending on what you are trying to do. So what I'm suggesting is that in this era, you should be able to know what sort of output that you want so that you'll be able to prompt it and it will give you the output. And that'll be my last point on the AI. The part about lawyers is that I think one thing that an AI will never be able to do, I don't know when, but I don't think we are anywhere close to it, is applying the law to the fact. In as much as the AI is good with having so much information or having so much knowledge or being trained on a lot of large sets of documents, I don't think we are in an era where an AI can properly apply the law to the fact because we understand the fact because of the human nature and because of so many information that you would have. The AI at this moment in time, for the technical people on the call, you know that anytime you give it a very large set of information, especially a prompt, it loses its chain of thought in the middle. So if you give it so much information, and that is what a human being, that is the power of a human being, and that's what the training that you would get from law school about applying the law to the facts, the analysis that you're able to do properly. And that's actually the skill of a lawyer. So I don't think at any point the AI should be able to do this. And some of the things that a lawyer would always have is making strategic choices in the sense that it's a skill. As a lawyer, you will know when to apply for an injunction, you know when you want to settle a matter, you know what you want to do based on the strategy that you want to do in a case. So there are instances where I have seen lawyers try to ask the AI to say that, okay, considering everything that we have shared with you, if you were in my position, what will you do? I have seen lawyers do that, which I find I don't think is a good practice.
The best
Because
practice.
the best practice, because there's absolutely no way that you are asking a robot to tell you what they will do. What people are trying to forget is that it's a large language model trained on trillions of documents. So it's not just going to think based on what you have just asked. There are instances where people have customized GPTs, where you put a constraint to it that, okay, this is the set of documents that we are working with, these are the links and everything. But also there's a very, very high risk that it will not be able to think like you would do. So that's the distinction between what the AI can do and what a lawyer can do in this era.
So, Bishop, considering that, I mean, what would you say are the most common mistakes? I mean, you just mentioned one where you put in large documents and ask the AI to put itself in your shoes as a lawyer to say, but I mean, what are some other common mistakes that users of AI do commit in this era?
There's a long list of the mistakes. I'll try and list a few. So the first one is a very
Right.
popular one. I always forget the title of the case, but a popular US case where the judge was telling them that they told the lawyer that they used wrong citations
Yeah,
in that
yeah,
case. Yeah,
yeah,
so the very
yeah.
first mistake.
Cited a lawyer for contempt.
Yes. So the very first mistake is treating citations as real. Unfortunately, there is no instance where an AI or a conversational text output will tell you, I don't know. I rarely see that. So there is always going to be an answer. So the first mistakes that we would be making as lawyers is treating every citation to be real. So you always have to verify the citation, you have to verify the source. It will look as if it's work trying to do that. Then you ask yourself, why didn't you actually do it in the first place? But like we've proven across large set of so many matters, especially with the work I do over here, that you verifying actually takes less time than actually starting to do the work. So verifying citations is one, and also using summaries without reading it. So because people actually assume that you have given your layout or your output, what you want to get, and the AI gives you a summary of a case, people just jump into straight to do their work without actually reading the summaries. There's actually a high risk that you may be getting some sentence being brought in hallucinations there that you didn't even expect. So you always have to make sure that you read every summaries that come out of it. Another one is also making sure that you set the jurisdiction before you start doing any legal work. And I mentioned this at the start of the conversation that the AI does not know that you are based in Ghana, unfortunately. It doesn't know what you are doing. It could be just giving you stuff based on any state in the US. It could just be giving you any information from India. So try and set your jurisdictions before you start. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have Dennislaw doing quite a substantial amount of work within the Ghanaian jurisdiction over the last few years. So Dennislaw would be your best place trying to use AI for any work that you are doing within the Ghanaian
In
jurisdiction.
Ghana
Yeah,
jurisdiction,
but
yeah.
you might want to avoid trying to use some of the platforms that do not have enough information about the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Because the challenge that we have is that we have digitized our materials, but I don't think we have fully digitized everything. So there's quite a high chunk of information which are still hard copy, and the AI will just fix something for you to use. And the last part or the last mistake that you will be making is sharing client information to the AI. I think that's the highest risk that you might be doing. So just to give you an example, and this example just based on the innovation work that I do within my regions, UK, Ireland, and the Middle East. So in our jurisdictions, clients actually tell us whether we should use AI or not.
Not, not
So some clients have expressly told us that we should never use AI to do their work. So in this instance, if you go and use any AI on any client's work, that's a big problem. So you have to be extra careful trying to bring in clients' work on any AI platforms. Even if you want to do it or where you don't have these agreements in place with your clients or where you do not have any of such agreements, you have to anonymize a lot of these.
yeah.
You don't have to put this information there. So I think these could be the common mistakes that is happening. Even though I've mentioned it still
Yeah.
happens. You just have to look out for it.
I mean, yes, and I take that as a very important point here because, you know, the more our practice as lawyers, as law students, as law lecturers, particularly for professional practitioners, our profession thrives on the a fiduciary relationship of confidence and trust, where your client expects that the information that they give to you, it's treated with all the confidence, and it's privileged information. I mean, the entire relationship is privileged. And so to put all that information on a third party platform such as an AI for the purpose of your research, I mean, it poses some risk. And so would you be making the case that we should be cultivating the practice of introducing some of these aspects of our legal work in our terms of engagement? Just like you mentioned that there are clients who would expressly tell you that, I mean, they would give you the consent and permission to make apply AI in your work? I mean, should it become a practice where we engage clients on some of these things that in the course of our work, I mean, it's the workload is so much that we may incorporate some legal assistance from our AI tools. And so, I mean, should that become a practice?
Yes, 100%, JB. I think it should be the practice, but I would also try and use this call to make a regulatory call that there should be a practice direction on some of these things. And we should adapt as we go every year or every like 2 years because the tools change a lot. The way I saw ChatGPT just before the holidays, because obviously nobody was working before Christmas, how I'm seeing it now is entirely different. So the tools change quite a lot.
How do we monitor that?
No, so you wouldn't because obviously you focus on the legal work, but that's my work, especially focusing on the technical aspect. So you do not have
No.
to bother about it. But I'm trying to make a point that it's a regulatory call here where if I may be wrong, but whether it's the GBA or the General Legal Counsel, whether there is supposed to be a technical function within any of these bodies that actually look out for these and always issue practice directions for people to know that moving forward, if you want to do this or you want to use these tools, because some of the things that are evolving, I'll give you an example. So in the UK, the SRA now has, and for people on this call, I'm sure you know that there's now an AI-enabled law firm. We had to pilot this. I was involved in that about 2, 3 years ago. It was piloted for about 6 to 8 months before we now allow the AI-enabled law firm. When they came onto the market a few months ago, we have the SRE then issued a practice direction given about how people would be engaging with these AI-enabled law firms. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you are going to move to the direction, obviously the liability is on you, the lawyer, to make sure that you set that in place with your client. But I think the regulator also comes in handy or helps very much when they try to help the ecosystem grow to let them know that, okay, when you are engaging people, let them know that you will be using it or not so that they properly consent to it.
Very well, Michelle. Thanks for that insight. Let me come back to the Dennislaw as an AI tool for legal research and all that. In using purpose-built AI tools like Dennislaw, how are we able to improve, as users, its efficiency for our work, its usefulness, and how it's going to assist us to make meaningful and expeditious work? I mean, how do we improve that?
So Dennislaw, I'll give you a bit of history or background because I think that's the most useful tool you should have. I think
Yes.
every lawyer should have that as a Bible. If you don't have Dennislaw, especially if you practice in Ghana,
Yeah.
the reason is that I think it has digitized, I think, the largest set of case law or statutes in Ghana
Mhm. Yeah.
at the
Right.
moment. So that is one. Traditionally, you would have gone to Dennislaw to go and search the years for any case. So you go to maybe 2025, or you go to law reports, or you probably go to the statute section to go and look for an LI or an EI or whatever you were looking for. And there was the keyword search where that was like a lot of uh, things being done for people who didn't know the title of the cases that they were looking for. But the newest version, which is the beta 4, I don't know if everybody has access to it or not, is where the chatbot has been built on. Now, if you remember earlier on the call, I have mentioned that where the AI become more useful is where you have constrained it. So people who use ChatGPT a lot know that you can build a GPT in ChatGPT, give it some specific instructions, give it some data that, okay, I'm just working with this data. So the good thing about Dennislaw is that because all the data or all the case law and statutes are there already on the system, and the chat layer has now been built or the conversation has now been built, you spend very little time trying to do the search. That is one. Now, there's another thing that you can actually turn around and do with Dennislaw where you would not necessarily have had it in the past. So, for example, if you ask it to give you some cases or some particular legal principle or some output, you can actually give a counter prompt and say, okay, give me the strongest cases in response to this particular section that you've given in the response. I think in the past, you now spend time, find the cases, then now do the comparisons by yourself. So that is some hours or some time being saved there. And back to the point about outputs or formatting or what you expect. So if you put any legal principle, any term that you are looking for in the chat, it will definitely bring you some results or the cases in that manner. I think the best way or the quickest way to make good use of Dennislaw is you can always give it the layer that you want. So if you want the authority, if you want the court, if you want the arbiter, if you want the decision, you want the procedure, you can always do that. Then you come back to ask it further questions and then just save you all the time. But don't forget that it's an AI, it can make mistakes, it can hallucinate like I've mentioned already, but it saves you like quite incredible amount of time that you'll be doing already doing the traditional search. So the good use cases about these purpose-built tools is that rather than using ChatGPT to do a case law work on defamation, where ChatGPT will not have all of the information publicly available to them to scrape to build their model, Dennislaw would have that. And similar legal search engines on the market would also have based on the data that they have.
Thank you very much, Michelle, on that. I mean, for those of you joining us now, we are discussing the best practices in AI-assisted legal research. AI has become the order of the day. We've heard a lot of conversations, a lot of, posts and engagement about it. It is better that as law students, as practitioners, we adopt and learn how to use it in incorporating the best practices that we can. And so that is what we are discussing with our very own Michelle and Cancer, who is a law tech enthusiast and a product manager. And so if you have any questions, you can forward them to me through the chat box and then we can engage Michelle on it. Michelle, I mean, back to speaking for law students, which I am one myself and a junior counsel. I mean, how do you see legal training evolving with the use of AI as opposed to conventional and traditional methods? We know and we are always told that the profession is very conservative and, senior lawyers are enthused with taking your big law reports to the Supreme Court and, packing bags and all that. I mean, to us young lawyers, to us law students, how is our training and mentorship supposed to evolve with using AI, assisted research platforms?
Yes, like I mentioned, JB, earlier on, I think that especially at the Bachelor of Laws level, not the professional law school, I think not the curriculum entirely should be changed, but I think a new model must be introduced. I have seen some universities, I cannot mention names for obvious reasons, introduce some technology courses within or some courses, whether IT or something, that law students are doing now, which is great. But I think that because of the rapid movement of how the whole technology industry works, by the time that model has even been built or developed and the students are now about to study, the whole content is almost irrelevant. So there is something that needs to be done that needs to keep law students on their toes. Um, Based on the conversation, I'll give you an example. Based on the conversation we're having today, I think that every law student now should have like a strong verification skill. In the past, the skill will be the person who knows where to find stuff, searching the library and bringing all your cases so that. But I think for now, every law student should be like a proper verifier. Like you should be able to verify it. As to how we will train law students to have these verification skills, I'm not on this call to give that, but verification skill will be needed the most because when you go as a junior, when you go into a law firm, I think you'll be given the most basic work to do. to find some of these things. But if you
Yeah.
go to Dennislaw or your senior goes to ChatGPT and is able to get the information, what is the quickest way that you'll be able to verify some of this information and get the next work done for your senior? So that is one. The second one is not entirely prompting, but I think law students must understand how large language models work. In the past, or 2, 3 years ago, just when ChatGPT was a thing, I think there was a lot of noise about every lawyer should be a prompt engineer, should learn legal prompting. I don't think so. I totally think that has changed. What I think law students should be doing now is to understanding how large language models work. Because if you understand how they work, if you are able to take very basic tasks by yourselves to compare how ChatGPT 5.2 works, give it a similar task and give a ChatGPT 4.0 task and see the outputs that it comes, you'll be able to know that, okay, when I'm giving a very big work in the law firm on a transaction, I will use ChatGPT 4.0 because it will produce a proper response or give me a close enough or good work to use rather than using the 5.2. So understanding these large language models will be one of the best things every law students will be. And the final one is that I don't have a name to call this, but I think every law student must be extremely tech savvy. In the past, I think when I was growing up, I think they used to say everybody should go to computer school to go and do learn how to type or whatever. But I think we've left that era. But I think in this era, every law student should be extremely tech savvy. The reason why I'm saying that is I'll take us totally away from this AI legal research conversation and give you an example in contract analysis. So in the past, or well, it's still being done by a lot of law firms or lawyers, is that when you have a contract and you want to review the contract, you probably have a manual or a playbook that you analyze the contract against based on how the law firm operates, based on what the transaction is about, based on whatever work that you are doing. But there's an insane revolution happening in the contract industry with intelligent playbooks where you don't have to spend so much time to be analyzing contracts anymore. You will not get this sort of education or you will not learn it anywhere unless you are extremely curious about technology or you know how to look for some of this information. So I will not have a name to put it, but I think every law student must be extremely tech savvy. If you want to be very resourceful or reliable in your firm or wherever you find yourself, I think you should be very curious with technology in this era.
Yes, we have been advised to be very tech savvy and employ the use of technology in our legal work. At this point, I would call for questions. Anyone who has any question, in respect of the presentation that has been made so far, you can just raise your hand so that Michelle can address your question. Anyone? Yes, Kofi Tagbo, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. Great conversation so far. Okay, am I clear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Kofi, we can hear you. Please
All
go
right, so
ahead.
Phil, I would like to know how as students we can contribute to the AI models, especially that of Dennislaw, in turn to help us to answer certain questions that lectures require of us. So point is, how can we contribute for the AI platforms to be able to help us answer questions that, to the satisfaction of lectures? I don't know if my question is clear.
Yeah, it's very clear. I have an answer to your question, but I think I will let Dennislaw people. Oh, Eliezer is here, so I'll let him respond to that.
Yeah, hello, hi. So, of course, thank you again for the question, and we appreciate the efforts and the efforts being made to help us develop the models that we use. Consistently, we are looking to enrich the resources through which, or the resources and the materials that are the basis for the models we create. And like Michelle has been saying, it's in the quality of the data that are best case or our best foot is able to step forward from. So can you hear me still? If you can't hear me, please let me know. Michelle, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
All right, great. And so for how students and the general public can support us in what we are doing, of course, we realize that we, every now and then, we source for cases from the general public, ask them when they can share with us. We do the proper citing there to be able to improve the richness of the cases that we are using. Also, our Dennislaw News is a very good platform that gives us context to some of the quality of the resources that we give out. So, oh, sorry, Ebenezer, can you hear me? So, in terms of
Yes, we can.
yes, in terms of where we are getting,
Please, we are finding it very difficult to hear.
I'm so sorry about that. Is it better? Hello, is it better now?
Yeah,
Yes,
I believe
right,
it's
okay.
better now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that in terms of where we get the resources that help to shape the quality of the outputs we give, we're always on the market for additional context and resources and files that you can provide. And we, from time to time, we receive from the general public and we help source in that respect. So that is something that is always available. And we invite students to intern with us, and through the internship that they serve with us, they're able to help improve the quality of the training that we give to the models that we have built in-house. So it improves the accuracy of the responses that the models give. And that also helps to shape, because we get the outlook directly from participants or from users. So you become like the first test case that we can use to ensure that the quality of the models that we have, the quality of the models that we have created is always assured. That of course works with the lawyers as well, who from time to time come in to help improve the accuracy and precisions of the models that we've created. So that is some of the ways that not only students, but the general public, including judges and magistrates, can help to improve the quality of the models we have. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Thank you for that. We'll take two more questions. I can see a hand up. Eliza
Hello.
Quayson. Yeah,
Hello.
Eliza, if you may unmute and ask your question.
I think Eliza was the one who he works at
Yes.
Dennislaw. So he spoke.
All right, so we have
Hello.
Richard Boatin.
Hello,
Richard,
can you hear me?
Richard, please unmute and ask your question.
All right, thank you very much, JB, and also Mitch. I think Mitch has spoken at length about what law students need and what they should do, and in terms of becoming tech savvy and all that. Permit me, but I feel I've always had a one-sided debate and argument when it comes to this legal tech. We always speak about what students need, what they need, what they should. But we know we are in a system that should be a corresponding system. We have a system where we have lawyers, we have judges, we have students, we have faculty members, we have all that. So where you sit and where you have studied, I know you have been in a different jurisdiction. What do we need as a country to have that kind of correspondence? Because we know lawyers don't work in a vacuum. The same way faculty, students don't work in a vacuum. They need faculty members, lecturers, to have a correspondence system so that legal tech can work properly wherever you find out, whether at the faculty or the court or whatever system. So where you sit and where you have been, what should we do as a nation? What do we need to rope in the other half? Because I feel we've spoken a lot about what students need. What do the other side, what do they also need? What should we do as a nation? And what steps are you taking as a legal tech enthusiast, someone who organizes such a big program as well as Dennislaw? What are the steps? What do we need to bridge the gap? And what are we doing to rope into, work there, to move there very fast to break that gap closely so that both sides will be equipped? You have a proper legal tech system using a case study, maybe where we have been, what they have that we can also have into making it possible. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Richard, that was a long one. I'm sure you me. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, thanks very much, Richard. I'm not sure. I think we probably met before at the event, but so I'll tackle it into two or three folds. So as for the student part, you've already said you've spoken so much about what students need to do. There's another part, which is the lawyers or the law firm part. Then I'll speak about the government or the regulators part. So the lawyer and
Well,
the law.
you left the judges out.
Sorry,
Very important.
Yeah, I'll touch very briefly on the judges.
Right.
Yeah, so on the lawyers and the law firm part, I'll put more of the responsibility on the law firms, especially with the very top or partners or owners of law firms or legal institutions in Ghana. What I have seen across jurisdictions, I have been fortunate enough worked in so many jurisdictions. What I have seen is that there are innovation training programs for junior lawyers or pupils who come into law firms. And what these programs do is that there is no part, and I have designed one in the last 2 years. There is no specific sort of models that you give to the students that they should do, but they are always done as and when basis. So if I'll give an example. So let's say, Richard, your name is Richard, so I'll use your law firm. Richard and JB law firm. You bring in pupils into your firm this year. I think we've got to the point where law firms need to take a lot of responsibility in training some of the students or some of the juniors who come to the firm. What I have seen, and I may be wrong, is that a lot of the time, they are trained on how to do the legal work, which is fantastic, but a lot of the legal work is done without adding the technology aspect to it. So what these innovation training programs can do at the law firms is that you can then actually practically show law students or junior lawyers who come to the firm that this is the biggest challenge we have in the firm. You have 5 pupils who have just joined the firm. Use this 3 months to solve this problem. And I think we are very intellectually curious to the extent that if we give 5 pupils a challenge to solve within 3 months, they will come out with an output. The other part is that we don't have enough investment given to, or law firms have not invested properly in softwares. And that is where I would really urge senior lawyers on the call who have firms to try out. I know they are doing their best, but
I think it's a cost issue.
It's a cost issue, which I absolutely get. But I think we've got to the era where if you compare, and I've done quite a number of exercises around this cost analysis. If you compare some of the costs that is, or some of the monies that are being spent in different areas, and you try to compare it into purchasing some of these softwares, you may be able to get quicker wins by spending some of your budgets here. So one is introducing innovation programs within your law firms. 2 is investing in the softwares. It took a very long time for us to actually start buying softwares, and Dennislaw can speak about that. It took a very long time for us to get there, but we cannot run away from the fact that legal research is just one of the areas of legal tech. As far as I know, based on the work I've been doing within the last years, there are about 27 sectors within the legal tech industry that every law firm should be on top of. And this is not based on outside Ghana. Every Ghanaian law firm should be able to work or have softwares that make their life easy in that. So investing in it, I think the responsibility on us. I'll go quickly to the government side.
Right.
Like I mentioned earlier, I think that we are the era where the GBA or the GLC, I don't know where the work will be done, but we are in an era where there should be a proper tech function that look after latest innovation or technologies that are coming out. Based on the work that I have done, I used to work at the Ministry of Justice in the UK. So I'll give you an example. So digital assets, the Bank of Ghana is rolling out the digital assets recently within the last 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I had done a lot of work on digital assets 3 or 4 years ago when the government knew that they were going to think about bringing digital assets into the frame. Now, that work was being done by the ministry or being done by regulators. I think the investment also needs to come, the call needs to come from the government where we need to understand. And I used to tell people a lot about this. The backbone of the entire tech industry is law tech. The reason why I say this is that everybody who starts a business needs to speak to a lawyer to help them, or even when you are registering a company, if
Yes.
you are not literate enough or you do not understand some of the basics, you probably contact your law student or your lawyer friend to help you register the company. So there is nothing that can be done without law, and law tech is actually what can drive a lot of these innovations across. So that's the call on the regulators. And I think if we make the investment right, this investment has not been done in any jurisdiction in Africa. And that's one of the reasons why we've been doing the work that we do at Legal Tech Lounge, to try and bring a lot of attention or bring a community together about the time to invest in the industry. Some of the countries, obviously I'm speaking more about tech, like Nigeria, Kenya, and the rest, they went far ahead of fintech because they did some of these groundwork very early on when we started catching it. We have some brilliant fintech companies in Ghana, and all of you on this call will know them. But unfortunately, they've not had some of these communities to help them. That is why it is seen as if the Nigerians or the people in other jurisdictions are doing more. The last one will be the judges. And also, not to try to sound political, I think almost everybody, almost everybody on the call would have watched the His Lordship Chief Justice vetting recently,
Yes.
and yeah,
Yes.
he made mention about trying to introduce some new stuff to help the judges. I wouldn't know on this call where to make this call, whether I should go to the judicial service or whether there is a body for judges that should do this. But I think we have reached the point where they need to bring in external people to come and help these functions. A lot of training needs to be done, just in the sense that the technologies did not come during their time. The stuff that my little sister knows about technology now, I don't even know them. Just because ChatGPT came during her time, so she's quicker with it. But I
Right.
just happen to do. So these institutions, whether the judicial services or not, I think also need to get to the point where they have to think about bringing external people to let them understand how some of these technologies work. I'll give an example again about the digital assets again, because I know some people are about to comment on. But if some of these cases start going to our courts,
Right.
then we will start to realize why we need to start being ahead of the curve. Because whether we like it or not, there will be a blockchain something going to our court, there will be some crypto something going to our court. What trainings are we giving to our judges? So it's not just about the law student, but the whole investment must come from all stakeholders.
Right, right, right. I mean, just when the conversation got much exciting and engaging, I mean, we have to draw the curtains down. I believe that it will be a good call to have a second episode of this segment. So, Bishop, in wrapping up, just in a minute, I mean, what should be one key lesson to take from this engagement? Just one in a minute.
It would be very difficult, but
We've
because
said a lot.
there's various people
Yeah,
on the call, but I would just say something I tell people very often is that you should never try to outsource professional responsibility to AI, wherever you are. So whatever you do, whether you're a student or whether you're a lawyer or whether you're a judge or whatever you do, never outsource your professional responsibility to AI. It's just a companion. It is not supposed to do your work for you. It's just supposed to assist you do your work. I think that the kind of work that I do, I probably would have needed a huge budget to be paying a lot of personal assistants, but I don't. I can't afford a personal assistant. I have so many AI tools that make my life easier. So it's just an assistance. Not don't outsource your work entirely to any AI, regardless of whatever you do. So yeah, I think that would be my last words.
Right. Colleagues, friends, seniors, I mean, we shouldn't outsource our professional responsibility to AI. We have been told that AI is only an aid, it serves us, it's a companion. But we should, however, be circumspect in our use of AI. We should employ the use of verification, especially when it comes to our statutes, our legislations, when it comes to case law. And we've been taken through how Dennislaw assists in AI research and does AI research too. And so, I mean, Dennislaw has asked me to inform you that the current version, the old version, is phasing out very soon, and by the end of February, that version would have phased out. The new Dennislaw app comes with a lot of AI tools that have been incorporated that would assist you to effectively conduct your research and all that. And the information of this new update will be communicated on their various social media platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and all other through your emails that you have shared with us. And so we thank you all for joining us this evening. It has been exciting, it has been engaging. Special thanks to you, Michelle. I have learned so much today, and I believe that a number of us, all of us who have joined have learned so much. And so we are grateful for these insights that you have shared with us. We thank Dennislaw for also putting this together to assist us through these nuances of AI-assisted legal research in this era of technology. We are grateful. We thank you all so much, and we'll come back to you. We'll expect that you all subscribe, a number of you all subscribe to Dennislaw, which will facilitate your legal researches. So thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Real. One more thing before we go, if it's okay. Please, a couple of announcements before we all leave.
Right.
So there have been a number of questions about how you can use some of these AI tools. I just want to know that Dennislaw is available to offer consultancies on these matters, how to streamline your operations, your workflows with AI. So you can always reach out to us, and we'll be in a position to support you in that respect. Also, this webinar series would be running in the coming weeks. I think every month would run a similar one so that you can get the assistance that you need. You can always reach out to us via email at info@dennislawgh.com for any form of assistance. Thank you very much for your time.